What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another BRAP rant. Happy Monday to everyone. It's March the 25th, 2024. And wanted to do a quick lunchtime rant. Try to do these when I can. Typically, my schedule is a little busy in the afternoon, so sometimes it's hard for me to do these lunchtime rants. But had some time today. Wanted to discuss exclusives again because I'm seeing this conversation around video game exclusives like somehow they're bad now, and we talked about this weeks ago. And it's just a weird conversation that I'm seeing. I'm sure that the same individuals who are looking to somehow, villainize, I guess, video game exclusives. I would imagine those same people are probably engaged in other consumer products where there's some kind of product differentiator exclusive that draws them to that product. But for some reason, video games tend to, I don't know, follow a different set of rules, I guess. Again, you probably have heard me say that a million times on this show as well, that for whatever reason, people treat the video game industry, the consumption of video games, different from other consumer products. Look, just like other consumer products, video games aren't immune to things that provide product differentiators that will motivate consumers to go out and buy or engage in an ecosystem, a platform, things like that. So these things are important when you're in a competitive landscape, and can be beneficial to consumers as well. In terms of, you look at typically with exclusive games, when they're made by first-party studios, those tend to be the best experiences. The games that really tap into the hardware, that go to the metal, that take advantage of the new feature sets. We see this quite a bit with Sony first-party games and their use of the PlayStation 5 hardware and the implementation of the DualSense controllers, things like that. I mean, those are things that you typically are going to see taken advantage of by first-party games or first-party developers. So this idea that exclusivity is bad is just really odd, and so I'll talk about that as well. Also, the Jim Ryan bobblehead, a bit strange, odd. Yeah, it's kind of weird, I think, that they created a Jim Ryan bobblehead. I should note that people who are fired don't get bobbleheads, by the way. I want to dispel that rumor as well. But big shouts everyone in the live chat. Thank you everyone for joining me in this impromptu lunchtime BRAP rant. I really appreciate your time. Do me a favor, and I'm going to drop a link here in the live chat. If you could be so kind to retweet the link or share it on your favorite social media platform, preferably not Donald Trump's. Yes, I'm not a MAGA supporter, by the way. If you are a MAGA supporter, hey, God bless you, but that's not me. Big shout to Otacon Asa, says, hope everything is good for everyone on Monday. Yeah, everything is good. RPG88 says, good morning, BRAP. Allergies still beating on you. Yeah, allergies are a bit rough right now. We're in that season right now. It's spring. Spring was first day of spring was last Wednesday, I believe. And so, yeah, it's that time of the year. I've started to stack up on my allergy medication, taking that to prepare for allergy season, which is never fun. Look, I love spring, but allergies, blah. Yeah. By the way, for those who don't know, I typically don't. Somebody asked me the other day if I write scripts for my shows. I do sometimes, or I'll jot down bullet points. But I typically don't write scripts. Again, on occasion I will. But a lot of what I do is really off the cuff, and I actually prefer it that way because I feel like it gives you a more unfiltered, raw perspective on things. Yeah, and so that's why I typically do that. So if you're enjoying that kind of content, then please hit that like button, helps out the channel. Subscribe, hit the bell notification so you're alerted when we go live. But again, I will write scripts on occasion. And anyhow, so I want to talk about exclusives again. It's kind of interesting. Like, I really, you may have heard me say this on the show before. Fanboyism is dangerous. Fanboyism whether it's on the Nintendo platform, whether it's on the PlayStation platform or the Xbox platform, is dangerous in the sense that it is you, an individual consumer, basically acquiescing and not holding a corporation accountable, or not applying a critical lens to what a corporation does. And when you don't do that, that just isn't beneficial to consumers or to you as a consumer. It is a form of, and I've said this before, you may have heard me say it on this show, it is anti-consumer behavior. And you know, it creates a lot of misinformation, disinformation, and it really dumbs down the conversation around video games. And so that's one thing we don't like on this show is our console warriors, fanboys. I think it's bottom of the barrel type of behavior and conversation. I'm okay with someone being a fan of a platform, but when you start getting to the console warring stuff and the acquiescing to whatever corporation tells you is right versus wrong, like you as a consumer shouldn't necessarily allow a corporation to dictate you the terms of what's right and good for you. Based on your individual use case, you should be able to come to that conclusion on your own and decide whether or not that corporation, the product they're providing you, meets that use case. So and I say that as a kind of a segue into video game exclusivity, because it wasn't until Microsoft a couple of weeks ago, actually more than a couple of weeks ago, more than a month ago now. Geez, it's going to be 2 months here soon. Probably about 6 weeks ago. Not until they started introducing the idea of first-party games going to other video game consoles, rival consoles. That's something that just really hasn't happened in the past. And now that they're doing it, everyone is, not everyone, but a lot of the console warriors, if you will, a lot of the more extreme elements of the Xbox community have said to themselves, well, this is actually great. This is the future. You know, this is how it should be. When mere months before the release of Starfield, they were championing the idea or the release of a exclusive game to the Xbox console. And so the only thing that's changed in their thought process is that Microsoft has kind of changed their own approach to exclusivity on their platform. And so, you know, I listened to a couple podcasts this weekend, and I've kind of heard that undertone of, oh, well, this is the future. This is how it should be. And it's just odd to me that months ago, and I've listened to this, but I won't name the podcast, but I've listened to this particular podcast in the past where they were championing this idea of, oh, wait till Xbox gets more exclusives. Exclusives are the lifeblood of a console. And I just don't, it's just odd to me that someone would just change on pivot so quickly based on how a company has kind of pivoted their own strategy and how they and how and where they choose to release their first party software. It's odd to me. And again, this is just a byproduct of this is just really a byproduct of I think being too emotionally involved, too tied to a corporation. Again, I don't have an issue with someone having a preference in terms of platform, but there's just this idea of fanning out for corporations just odd to me. It just doesn't make sense. Again, like I said earlier, yeah, I think it's a bit anti-consumer because it removes this idea of accountability and removes the critical lens that everyone should be applying to a corporation, a company that produces a consumer good product. So again, I don't think it's good for gaming, and not just really content creators, but you see influencers. We did a video a couple weeks ago where we talked about we deserve better from gaming influencers and journalists. And you see someone like Destin Legary, who, if you look at some of his YouTube videos from last year and you compare it to this year, it does a complete 180 based on, Microsoft's pivot. It's just odd. It's like it's almost like these guys had this eureka moment, like they, were in the bathroom and they slipped and hit their head and they looked up and they saw the flex capacitor. It's just weird to me. It's like it doesn't come across as genuine. It seems like the message or how they feel is being dictated and controlled by $1 trillion corporation. And actually, in one particular content creator or influencer that we use it as example, who said Final Fantasy VII Rebirth was criminal, was Paris Lily. And Paris, contrary to your own belief, we didn't make a video about you, sir. I know you like to think that, but no. That's not what we did. We did make a video about you. Anyone and everyone who's seen that video has agreed that no, we did not make a video about you, contrary to your own beliefs. And I only know that you didn't watch the video. You didn't do your due diligence, which is comical. But you're an influencer. You probably should be doing due diligence. But anyhow, it's another conversation. But even with his conversation around Final Fantasy VII Rebirth being criminal, like how is that criminal? Like like someone who has access, who is discussing the conversations they're having with developers at DICE leads me to believe that that person may have some access to developers. That could be a question that you ask developers. Hey, what are the benefits of having exclusive games on a platform? That's why not ask that conversation instead of pushing this narrative that and parroting a narrative that a corporation's put out. Again, that goes. Please, I encourage everyone to watch that video that we put out. It was myself and Game Logic, where we discuss. And it's not all gaming journalists and influencers, by the way. I want to make that very clear. There are some good gaming journalists out there. There's some good influencers out there who drive a more nuanced conversation, and which is what we've been saying on this show too. The conversation around video games needs to be much more nuanced than what it's given credit. So, or what it's given. So. What's going on, Juice? I got a super chat here from Shivansu Prasad. Hope I'm pronouncing your first name correctly, sir or ma'am. But thank you for the $5 super chat. It says, why aren't Nintendo exclusives and third-party deals treated the same way? Seems one way with Sony. The only people who hate exclusives don't have any. Well, I mean, hey, Ice Queen Gaming. I think I think we know why Nintendo's never included in the conversation. And it is, thank you, Shimatsu, for clarifying, sir. Yeah, you never want to assume, right? But no, thank you for the clarification. Look, it's the obvious is because this is rooted in console warring. It's not a genuine conversation. It's a talking point. It's a tool to weaponize fans against each other. It's not genuine. It's a perspective that was born out of a pivot from $1 trillion corporation. It's not real per se. So that's why you never see Nintendo lumped into the conversation. It's never, oh, well, you know what? Nintendo should bring Mario to Xbox, or Nintendo should bring all that. No, it's not. Like exclusives are. There's going to be some level, even let's just say in the distant future, right? Let's say in the distant future. Abdi says, but isn't Final Fantasy dying on one platform? No, it's not dying, Abdi. We don't have any. This is okay. And so I'm not trying to pick on you here, Abdi. So here's the thing with Final Fantasy. We need to ask ourselves. We need to, and this is where I say the conversation around gaming isn't being driven from a data centric or more nuanced perspective, because people will say things like, well, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is doing worse than Final Fantasy VII Remake. So therefore, that is proof that Final Fantasy VII Rebirth should have been released on multiple consoles. But that conversation is such more. It's much more nuanced than just that. There are so many different dynamics that go into that. Okay, and this is where I say that Abdi says Yakuza and Persona becomes popular when they went multi-platform. I mean, but Abdi, Yakuza and Persona were popular before they went to other platforms. They were already popular. I mean, Persona has had a huge following prior to coming to Xbox. Yakuza as well. I mean, I remember going back to the Yakuza 10 years ago. I mean, it was popular already. So here's the thing, and so the Final Fantasy VII thing. Okay, we'll talk about this real quick because Abdi brought this up in the chat, and I think it's a great point, great thing to discuss here, because again, the conversation. If you go on social media, if you listen to some of these, more extreme fans, or the extremists, if you will, who are console warring a lot of the times, they'll take that as a talking point. They'll weaponize it. They'll weaponize it to say, oh, well, this is proof that, exclusives are bad because look at Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. It's not doing as well, yada, yada, yada. All right. So, and they often compare it to the sales of Final Fantasy VII. So a couple things. Couple things here. So from the developer perspective, we know that developers are in the business to make money. Publishers are in the business to make money. So just based on the money perspective alone, you are then arguing that the publisher Square Enix in this case, willfully left money on the table by not porting Final Fantasy VII Rebirth on the Xbox platform. Okay. So there's that. So just think about that for a sec. Companies are in the business to make money. So if you're using that argument, if you're trying to weaponize this argument, there's a couple of things. One, you are saying that Square Enix knew that there could be more money to be made by selling it on Xbox, but they purposely decided to stay. But they argued against their own interest to make more money, which is counterintuitive to how companies operate anyway, right? Abdi, and I'll get to that second question about what you think Square should do. Okay. Because Abdi, I used to think this way, by the way, how you're thinking and the kind of questions that you're asking. I asked these questions 20 years ago on the original Xbox. I didn't understand the nuances here and how these games are made, the data points that they're looking at. So Final Fantasy 715 or Final Fantasy, why did I say Final Fantasy 715? Jesus. That would be Final Fantasy 715. Final Fantasy 15 released on the Xbox. It ended up being about 9% of all sales of Final Fantasy 15, with about 75% being on PlayStation. Okay. So when you're a developer, when you're developing for multiple platforms, okay, you're looking at data. You're looking at forecast sales too. So you're looking at data. You're looking at how previous games have performed on certain platforms. That's going to dictate for developers and publishers where they put games. Okay. So no, I know you're curious, Abdi. I think they're great questions, by the way. I'm not trying to pick on you. I just want to add some nuance to some of these things. These are things that people talk about, and these are often things that are weaponized. A more extremist podcast. So they're looking at how these games have historically done well, and they're looking at how much development costs for a specific platform. It's reasonable to think that looking at, like, say, Final Fantasy 15, where Xbox only accounted for 9% of all sales for Final Fantasy 15, that the money that they spent, the additional cost, the additional lift, because remember, in software development, when you're developing for more platforms, that's additional time and resources, which equal to additional cost. More QA. I'm sorry. Hold on just a second. I got to take this call, actually. All right. Sorry about that. That was... I had to take that call real quick. Sorry about that. So, when you're developing for multiple platforms, there's more money associated with that additional cost. So the easiest way to look at it is the juice worth the squeeze? And if the company's looking at previous sales on a specific platform, if they are thinking to themselves, well, based on the additional money that would cost us to make a game on this platform, the juice may not be worth the squeeze. We may not make back enough money to make it make sense, to make the business case make sense for us to do that. And they may look at projections. They may look at how Final Fantasy 15 did in this case, right? Where again, Final Fantasy 15 I think was like 9% or whatever, and the PlayStation console was like 75% of where the sales. 75% of sales were on. I think it was actually more than 75%, but I'm being a little bit conservative here in the number. I think it's actually closer. I think it's actually 80%, but let's just say 75% of where 75% of the sales of Final Fantasy 15 were on the PlayStation 4. So if you're looking at that and you're looking at the additional cost it would take to make a game that may not make its money back, where the juice isn't worth the squeeze, then you may say it doesn't make business sense for us to do that. Why are we going to spend money to make less money, right? Why are we going to add that additional cost, which is going to eat into our margins? So there's that piece to factor into. Now, when people compare Final Fantasy VII Rebirth to Remake, the one thing they need to understand is, well, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth released during COVID. Actually, right as we're getting into I think like a month and a half into lockdown. So there was that, and it also was sold to a higher install base. Now, people are also forgetting that Sony has an exclusivity deal, and so there's money in exclusivity deals to get third-party exclusives on lockdown on platforms. So there's that, and people tend to forget those things, that Sony is giving money to help with the cost of this game. So some of that, by not releasing it on Xbox, may be mitigated by the investment that Sony's making into this game. So there's all those things that you factor in, right? Then there's projections. Okay, they think, well, if we sell this much on the PlayStation 5, then we'll be okay. Plus Sony's initial investment, we may be okay in this regard. We're not going to leave money on the table. So if you look at the and then in the conversation around, well, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth isn't going to sell well, this past last week, February MPD numbers or Circana numbers for 2024, the top 20 best-selling premium games, U.S. dollars, physical and digital. Helldivers 2 was number 1, actually. But Final Fantasy VII Rebirth came in at number 2. And what's also interesting is the Final Fantasy VII Remake and Rebirth bundle, or as they call the Twin Pack, came in at number 8 for the Circana MPD numbers. So again, that was kind of just a quick idea. It was kind of I just give you kind of a quick ran through kind of a quick scenario to add a little more nuance that it often lacks in this conversation around Final Fantasy, and then putting other games on other platforms. I understand the idea of I understand this idea of more games to everyone. It's as Logic likes to say, it's an altruistic idea, but there's some nuance there. There are business cases that need to be made for that to happen. that people often don't think about. So, yeah, Jiggery Pokery says people are treating Final Fantasies like Sony first-party exclusives that don't sell 10 million. And Jiggery Pokery, if you actually look at Final Fantasy series, the series has actually been on a downward trend. I mean, people like to bring up Final Fantasy VII rebirth numbers, and I put up a graph a couple rants ago, where I showed, and actually this is something that Slomo pulled up, but there's a graph chart. I think it's Statistician who put this out, but there's a graph chart actually showing the downward trend of Final Fantasy games. And even releasing on multi-platform Final Fantasy 15, there was still a downward trend for Final Fantasy games at that time. All right, I'm sorry, I'm going to tweet this out here. Jigger Poker says Final Fantasy 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, Crisis Core are on Xbox and never sold. Why would this one game sell? I mean, yeah, Jigger, I don't know the numbers on Crisis Core, but we know that JRPGs historically haven't sold well on the Xbox platform. And so those things are going to be factored into whether or not the juice is worth the squeeze for the developer publisher, in this case Square Enix, to port that game over. Does it make sense? It may not. And think about this, like, you're arguing against a corporation leaving money on the table and saying they're okay with leaving money. That's counterintuitive to how corporations operate. So there could be a in this scenario that, looking at how previous titles have sold and the costs associated with porting those titles over to the Xbox, it may not make business sense for them to do that. I mean, look at the Capcom numbers. When Capcom releases financials, if you look at there's a pretty big disparity gap between, there's a pretty big disparity between Capcom games that sell on PlayStation versus Xbox. I'd have to go back and dig the financial reports, but if you look at some of the financial reports from Capcom, like sometimes it's single digits for Xbox compared to, and while PlayStation's in double digits for Capcom games. And I think it's just telling the kind of games that do well on each platform. But I mean, great conversation, by the way, Abdi. I'm glad you brought that up, because I think it's important to have that conversation by giving more a bit more nuance. Shivachu Prasad says the way Big Macs make me want to go to McDonald's. Well, that's the point. I mean. And that's an easy enough comparison or example that people should understand. Like, differentiators exist for a reason, to drive consumers to, in this case, a fast food restaurant chain in McDonald's, or other consumer goods. Nike has exclusivity with LeBron James to make LeBron James shoes. We don't yell at LeBron James and Nike for not allowing LeBron to have Reebok make shoes for him. We don't yell at Netflix for allowing for not allowing Apple TV to have Stranger Things. We don't yell at Apple TV for not allowing Ted Lasso for not being on Netflix. I mean, and these things are important. They are differentiators in the market. They drive consumers. Consumers see value in differentiators. There's a piece. And you could probably do a Google search, but there's something I read about high-end luxury products, okay? And it was interesting because it spoke to that people who engage in high-end luxury products often do so because they like to have things that other people can't have. And so there's a sense of belonging, exclusivity that consumers like, that people want. It's desirable. Gregor Von Doom says Gears of War series has been on a downward trend in sales. Bring it to PlayStation. Stop, Gregor. So that's why I don't think and what's odd is that I listen to a lot of the more extremist YouTubers who support the Xbox platform, and it's odd because it's always this projection of the future, right? And it's done to validate Microsoft's pivot and their own philosophies. I mean, maybe Microsoft. I mean, I do think they're a little bit ahead of ahead of the game here. I mean, we don't know how, the market's going to look or what the market's going to look like in 10, 20, 30 years. We could certainly speculate. Certainly I think it's going to be more digital focused. The cloud's going to have an important role. Cloud has a role now, but it may have an even important role in the future. But this idea that that somehow Sony, and it's never Nintendo. By the way, Nintendo is the most archaic of all the big three. And Nintendo's never, Nintendo's never drawn into this conversation. Nintendo's never brought into this. And again, like I said, they're the most archaic of all the big three. All the big three they are. They charge you for old games still. There's no backwards, compatibility per se. Kem Wright says they aren't drawn in because it weakens their point. Exactly. So, by the way, do me a favor. Hit that like button if you haven't done so already. It helps out the channel. And if you're new to the show here, please subscribe, hit the bell notification so you're alerted when we go live. If you're new to the show, in the live chat, let me know. Raise your hand. Say I am, what are you talking about, Def Lloyd? Raise your hand. Raise your hand if you're new to the show in the live chat. Or I guess just type new if this is your first time watching. And look, and maybe Microsoft, maybe they have it right, in 10 or 20 years. Who knows? Maybe they don't. But the need to validate their strategy is just weird to me. I think what consumers should be focusing on is what they're getting today instead of what we're projecting might be out tomorrow. Because if you've spent $500 on a box, you didn't spend $500 on a box for what might happen 5, 10, 20 years down the road. You spend $500 to play games today. Shivan Prasad says, BRAP, do you consider Game Logic your exclusive content? Oh, my God. Oh, well, I will say this. Logic is definitely a differentiator in the podcasting space, not just on my show, but even on his shows and in the community, just given his expertise. Oh, Def Lloyd said someone's, okay, I got you. I don't disagree with that, Def Lloyd. So I think it's important. Just enjoy what you have today. Hold like you the measuring stick should be, am I getting the ROI out of this box today? And not, oh, well, you know what? 10 years, it's going to look really good, guys. It's going to look awesome. You wait. 5, 10 years from now, woo, just wait. I don't know about you, but I didn't spend $500 to wait. I'm not waiting. So, but Nintendo's, like you said, Shivansu is never bought in because because this is a talking point. It's not genuine. And but back to exclusivity. And here's why I don't think video game exclusives are here to stay. Because even if consoles go away, and let's say everything goes to an app, right? You fire up your Samsung or LG or whatever TV you have, your Sony Bravia, you fire it up, and there it is, the Xbox app, the PlayStation app, the Nintendo app, right? Everything is cloud, blah, 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 right? Well, you still need differentiators on those apps, much like you see with Netflix. You're going to need differentiators to attract consumers to that platform. I want to welcome Gaming Forte, by the way. What's up, Forte?
Yo, what the hell? What's going on here? What are we talking about? What happened? Did something happen? Did I miss something?
Oh no, you didn't miss anything, Craig. Just more of the conversation about exclusives being bad.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay,
no,
okay.
no,
I'm
nothing.
just
Yeah,
making sure. I was like, dang, did I
nah,
he up here talking
yeah.
about exclusives again? What happened?
No. Just I'm hearing a lot of the chatter and stuff about exclusives again. It's just weird because at the end of the day, like I said, with like any other consumer product, even apps, people like to compare things to Netflix. Like we're gonna have product differentiators. It's always going to be a thing. We went out and have. I do think the day and age of only having exclusives. Well, I think console. Well, I think for certain platform owners like PlayStation, Nintendo, you'll have console exclusives, right? Because PCs aren't consoles.
Yeah,
But you'll be able to play some of those games on PC, like that's different from how we grew up, playing video games. So that's certainly changed. But at the end of the day, my point is we're still going to have, even if this thing, let's say Forte, like I said, even if the PlayStation or Nintendo turns into an app on your television one day, they're still going to have differentiators on that app to try to attract you, to try to get you engaged in that app, in that ecosystem.
yeah,
And that's my point.
yeah. You gotta have. It's got to be something to make you want to pick them
Yeah.
over someone else.
Yeah. And actually, I'm glad you're here for it.
Especially since everybody's going in that direction.
Yeah, and I'm glad you're here for it because you interact with consumers like on a daily basis, right?
You know I do.
Yeah. Well, I know it's kind of a rhetorical question, but and you probably hear people like that are gravitate towards a specific platform because of exclusive games, right?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, that's what it's a lot of people. I mean, it's kind of different. It's like a lot of people um, do pick for particular things and everything, but it mostly just comes back to um, once you get all your friends on one particular platform, it's kind of hard to move them off of it until everybody moves off of it. But the exclusives are always going to be the reason that gets people into that ecosystem for the most part, and then from there it just trickles down more and more and more over the course of a generation. So that's why PlayStation has a sizable lead right now.
Yeah, that friends list thing is real, man. Where your friends play, that sense of community, that's a real thing, man.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't think people give that enough credit, man. That digital library,
people don't give that
list.
enough. Yeah, people don't give that enough credit. How once you build that that ecosystem with certain people, how it's hard to move off of it.
Yeah, no, exactly. Forte, what's the buzz out there, man? What's
say it
popular?
again?
What's the buzz out there in your store? What's popular? What are people asking for?
Helldivers.
Really?
Can't find any though. So
still?
yeah, I mean, I tell you, yeah, because people. It's almost like a situation where people just want it and they can't find it.
So
just like it's just like the portal. Conversation on the portal kind of stays at a fever pitch just for the simple fact that you can't find it. It's like the people that I feel like the people that really, really wanted one found a way to get it. But the people that are like, they hear friends or stuff that wanted it, and then they keep talking about how great it is. It kind of keeps that conversation going with just the casual side of people, and then they're interested in it. And then when they can't find it, it creates like that FOMO situation where people just keep talking about it. If you kind of think about with the PlayStation 5, if you really want, like, I won't say for probably the first 6 months, if you wanted a PlayStation 5, you could get one. But easily over that first year and a half to 2 years where they were super limited, if you were a person that really, really wanted one, you could have got one. You just had to be very dedicated to the process of finding it. But the fact that a lot of people were still looking for it kept that conversation really, really going in that direction. And it was kind of like that with all the consoles for the most part.
Yeah. Well, the Helldivers 2 thing's interesting because, we saw the MPD charts or Circana charts was number one. And we know that the game's been, it's a bona fide hit for PlayStation. Majority of the sales have happened on PC. No surprise, because PC's the definitive platform to play all things video games, but it's another conversation. But it's interesting because I remember, like, I think it was last week, you said the same thing. Like, hey, we're out. people are still coming to the store, asking for Helldivers, and the fact that here we are a week later, that hasn't died down.
Oh yeah, I already had three people today looking for the game, and we only been open for like a couple of hours.
So where are they hearing about Helldivers too? I mean, are these like people that are just like they've seen like YouTube streams? They tell you is it like word of mouth from people who are playing it?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what happens with co-op games and stuff, especially ones that have a really good gameplay loop to them that people are really interested in. People just once, like, all it takes is one or two of your friends to say that they're really enjoying it, and you just feel like you're missing out. I mean, I think that's what the power of live service games are, because live service is very dependent on the people, the ecosystem, player-based numbers and stuff like that. The more people that are in there, the better the experience is. That's why I always tell people, like, when people go, like, perfect example, Payday. It's a live service game because it's an online co-op game. I tell people all the time, they come into the store, they ask, hey, well, how is Payday 3? I said, oh, it's actually really good. But I said, you can play it by yourself, but it's way better with other people. Now, Payday 3, if you play it, is really, really cool. But not enough people are playing it. So it doesn't stay in that conversation. Whereas Helldivers, a lot of people are still playing it. So the gameplay loop's really good. So it stays in that conversation a little bit longer. Talk about how Destiny is. 21 million people bought that game day one when it came out. Of course, the number dropped significantly over the course of the first year, but they were still averaging 1 to 2 million people, playing that game consistently over a 6 to 7 year period. And that was mostly due to the fact that a lot of people were still playing it. A lot of people were still talking about it. The only problem with that game was the onboarding. It's like, where do you get your friends in on that game to get them interested in playing it? If they had a better onboarding experience, I think a lot of people would have came back to the game and played it. So it just really comes down to the systems in general. But especially with a game like Helldivers right now, since it's so early, it doesn't feel like you're missing out on everything jumping in 3-4 months later compared to this time next year. Who knows what this situation is going to look like with that game? Who knows what the overall roadmap's going to look like? They might have come out with 2 or 3 different updates since then that you might have to, play catch up mechanic with a lot of people. So right now is like the perfect opportunity for people to jump into the game and experience it with their friends while the game is still fresh. Not saying it's not going to be fresh next year if it's still heading in the same trajectory, but this is like the sweet spot where a lot of people can say, I got in like early enough where I don't feel like I'm left behind. And I think that's another part of why a lot of people are really, really interested right now, because they know they can still, kind of stay caught up with their friends and stuff. But the longer and longer that this goes on, I think a lot of people are going to kind of fall off. But I also think Sony is masterfully trying to get as many people to buy that game digitally as possible. That's why I think you can't really find too many physical copies of the game, because they're like, well, the game is a success, but we really want people to buy this on our platform, because of course we made, why share 20% revenue with somebody else when it comes to like distribution, retail sales, and everything like that, where we could take literally 100% of the sales right off our PlayStation store by allowing it to be that way. And I think that's kind of the direction they're going in when it comes to that. And they're not the only ones. You saw what Xbox did by literally shuttering their whole distribution side when it comes to physical media and everything. So that's something that's happening everywhere. I just think in general,
are you guys not getting any more Xbox stuff then? Is that?
Oh, we're still getting it. It's just it's very bare bones. Like, I can tell you that when it comes to PlayStation and Xbox, there is, I mean, of course, Nintendo probably has the biggest library when it comes to like brand new games in store. But PlayStation literally dwarfs Xbox probably 4-1 in like games that are brand new that are in stores right now. Which is, when you say 4-1, that's like saying if I have 25 copies of an Xbox game, of Xbox games, like different categories of them, that means you're looking at 100 to 125, more games that are on another platform. And that's a significant number.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's a great point about, PlayStation capitalized. I mean, honestly, obviously, like if you can't find it, you really want it, you can't find the physical version,
you're just gonna buy it.
You're probably gonna look at the digital storefront and say, "Ah, shit, I'm gonna go buy this now in the digital storefront because I really want it." And you're right.
Yeah.
They get 100% of that cut instead of splitting it with GameStop. So
GameStop, Walmart, Target. I mean, shoot. I mean, you got to think most physical copies of a game sold at retail. You're looking at 20% of that game being broke up to retail and distribution and making of the disc and CD cases and stuff. So you're making 70 to 80% of the sale at retail versus 100% when it comes to. I mean, of course, there's marketing and stuff in there when it comes to that and paying developers, but still, that overhead is significant when you're selling hundreds of thousands, millions to hundreds of thousands of copies.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, Forte. Hey, real quick, Forte, before we wrap up here, I want to ask you a question. Are you playing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth?
Yes, I am on chapter 11.
Now, what do you think of the mini games?
Mini games are cool.
Forte, talk about it, man. Because
good job, man. They're so. Go
ahead, man.
Have you done a lot of the what's the name? What is it called? Dang, I'm drawing a blank because I haven't played in like 3 days.
King's Blood?
Yes, King's Blood. I was about to say, I was going to say Blood-O, but yeah, King's Blood. Yeah, what are you thinking, bro? It's pretty crazy.
Forte, I am not a fan of mini games. That's never been my thing. I'm like, you know what? I just want to progress. I don't care to do the other stuff. I don't care for the mini games. I mean, I went to is it the Golden Saucer? Is that what it's called? That theme park that you go to?
Yes, Golden Saucer. Yes,
I went there. I was playing all types of games, man. Like I was like, why am I playing mini games? This is I don't know what it is about this game, but I'm enjoying the mini. And I'm not a fan of the mini games, but the mini games are fun. It's kind of a nice distraction. And I'm like, you know what? Like if I was on this like epic quest and I had some time to maybe decompress a little bit at a theme park, maybe I would do some of this stuff, But
mini games are things. But see, when they're done right, it makes you wanna stay. You may not stay in the thing that you thought it's a single player game, but if it's done right, it makes you want to stay in there. Like I always told people, one of my favorite things in Final Fantasy X was Blitzball. Like I stayed in Blitzball almost as much as I played the freaking game. Like once I beat the game, I was in Blitzball all the time.
Blitzball was fun.
Trying to level up on my characters, playing Gwent inside of Witcher. Yeah, that was really cool. Mass Effects Online, when you would go through the world, the what's the name, and then you were committing your people to the war front and stuff. All those different things were so cool in the game that just made you feel like, yeah, this is like not really something that's important to the game, but it's so fun. You just want to keep doing it.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you. I mean, hold on a second. I'm trying to look at something up here. What was there was a card game. Was it Lucky Hit? Oh no, it was Lucky Hit in Shenmue 2, which I used to play quite a bit.
Oh, okay.
And
I didn't play it.
And then but look, I didn't play Gwent because like I don't want to play a card game. But
Queen's Blood was Queen's Blood, that's pretty cool, bro.
I was really playing for about an hour straight, trying to figure out like I usually don't pay attention to tutorials. I just kind of skip by them, just jump into it. I need to go back and probably
remember in the originals when you would chocobo race?
Yeah, I'm the chocobo. Yeah,
I mean, I chocobo raced all the time, bro. It was pretty intense.
Yeah,
but racing some chocobos. Let's go.
But this one, I mean, like Queen's Blood is so like I'm like, you know what? Like if this game was on mobile, and I don't play a lot of, I rarely play mobile games on my phone. I would play Queen's Blood on my phone.
But listen, but think about it, that's how Gwent came out to be its own standalone thing, because so many people talked about it when they played it, that they decided to make it its own standalone thing that you could download digitally. So if enough people are talking about it, and I mean, I guess that's up to people like us to really, really foster and really, really let Square know, like, hey, this shouldn't just be a part of this game. This should be something that, anybody that likes strategy card games or anything like that should be really interested in. And then, you never know. You luck up one day and they release a Queen's Blood version, separately from the game that you could kind of play that way with other people. So I think that would be the next step. But you know how Square is. Square probably wouldn't do it for 20 years, and people forgot what the game was by the time they decide to do it.
Yeah, that would be unfortunate. I think if they did it, like if they waited a couple years to do a standard version of Queen's Blood. But I gotta be like, and this is a game. This is new to the game. Queen's. It wasn't the last game, and like I'm actually impressed. Like they made this game, or not that they made Final Fantasy, that they made Queen's Blood. And it's like it's really good. When you start getting like the different cards that have like different abilities, that's where I'm at right now. That's where I'm trying to figure out like what specific cards I should be playing. So it's really good. Like
there is a strategy to it.
Yeah. I need to read up some strategy guys, Forte, on Queen's Blood.
It's pretty deep. I mean, and that's the funny thing. If you shout out to all the YouTubers out there that are making videos based on Queen's Blood by themselves, not even really talking about the game, or just talking about strategies and stuff that you can do to win at Queen's Blood. Those channels are actually doing really well because, if you ever want to know how well something does in the game, go try to look it up and see how many views people are getting on, because that's a niche. Because, we always talk about niching down and niching to a certain audience that is looking for the thing that you're talking about. There's a bunch of people talking about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, but how many people are actually talking about, Queen's Blood? And then go look at those views, and that just lets you know how many people are actually really interested in what's going on with that game.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out. I haven't come across nothing's come across my dashboard on YouTube, but I'm going to check that. Well, I'm sure once I do the search, I'll start getting like more stuff across my dashboard for Queen's Blood. But I'm going to start watching the video because you're right. When you start collecting more cards, you start getting cards that have like the ability to boost other cards or ability to take cards off the table of your opponent. Like it starts getting a little bit deep. It's very basic in the beginning, but once you start getting those cards, it's like it's a different game. So but yeah, I spent like yesterday I was playing Forte. I found myself playing for like an hour and a half of Queen's Blood. Like, what am I? And I couldn't stop, man. I couldn't stop. I kept going back. Forte. It's not good, man. I mean, it's good. It's good, but it's not good if I want to progress and beat the game. So, but that's by far my favorite mini game that I played. And probably one of my because again, I don't play a lot of mini games, but in recent memory, this is probably my favorite of all the mini games I played. So anyhow, I do need to wrap up Forte. It's coming up at the end of my lunch hour here. So, I want to thank you for hopping on Forte. I appreciate it. I know you're at work, so I appreciate it, sir. And I want to thank everyone in the live chat for hanging out with us this afternoon. Please do me a favor. Hit that like button. Helps out the channel. If you're new, subscribe. Hit the bell notification so you're alerted when we go live. And we'll be back this Wednesday. We'll be back this Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. We're probably going to have a gaming journalist on. I will announce this individual on Twitter or X on Wednesday. Actually, I need to reconfirm with him that he could still make it, but he did say that he would be joining us this week. So we've had him on before.
That's nice.
It's been a while. And yes, BRAP exclusives. That's right, Shivanshu.
Let's go.
But yeah, so we'll make that announcement on X, Twitter on Wednesday. But come back, hang out with us again Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. So thank you again, everyone. Forte, thank you again, sir. I appreciate it, man. All right, everyone.
No, man, I appreciate it, man. You guys have a great weekend or a great week. Weekend just ended. Enjoy the games that you're playing and everything. And we will see you at DPS this week on Thursday, and also see you on BRAP on Wednesday, unless BRAP does another one of these surprise rants. Because who knows, something's gonna happen that's gonna set him off, and he's gonna come in here and complain to the audience.
Hey, it's
his constituents.
It's not complaining. It's
setting the record straight.
It's a sermon of sorts.
So okay, so we're conducting a sermon. Okay, got it.
Yeah, I think
let's hope that your Redskins conduct this good sermon this month.
You call me Minister BRAP from now on. I'm just joking.
Yeah,
I mean the Commanders. I mean, who? Oh man, I don't know who they're going to draft, but we'll see. That's going to be interesting. That should be interesting. So
I should draft JJ. Let's go.
Yeah, well, I read some interesting things on Drake May, and I'm like, oh, maybe Drake May's not that bad. Slow mo would be like,
no, screw that. No, you can have him. You're right. You can have him. Go ahead, take him. Go ahead.
Oh man,
but just remember what I told y'all. Remember I told you. And it's not the bias. I'm telling y'all, it's not my bias because I live in Michigan and I rooted for my national champion Michigan Wolverines. But you see where that boy JJ, the freaking Minnesota Vikings, might be trading up to get him. And I tried to tell y'all, he's gonna probably be the best quarterback in this draft.
I don't know about that. I don't know about that.
I tell you, listen, if he goes to Minnesota and he throwing the ball to Justin Jefferson, oh, it's a wrap, bro. It's a wrap.
But he didn't even throw a lot to Michigan.
He didn't have to throw. Did you watch his pro day? Did you watch his pro day this past week?
I mean, it's a pro day.
Okay, yeah. Oh, it's a pro day. But listen, the dude didn't even have to throw the ball at Michigan. He didn't even have to throw the ball, and we still went 15-0. Just think about that. There's a lot of unknowns out there, but I'm just telling you, being a person that watched it up close and personal, yes, he still has a lot of things he needs to work on, but the fact that kid, the fact that he was so unselfish coming into Michigan, being a 5-star quarterback and coming to an office where they literally did not let him throw the ball more than 300 times in the season, and he was perfectly fine with turning around and handing the ball off 60% of the time and playing bailout on third downs and had the best third down, rating of any quarterback in college football over the last 2 years, lets me know how great that kid was. So I'm just letting you know. Letting you know.
Yeah, well.
Don't be surprised.
All right. There's some bias here, Forte.
There is. I'm not lying. Listen, there's going to be some bias here, but I already told, just like when TB went, I bought my Tom Brady one. I will be buying wherever JJ goes. I'm buying that jersey. I'm just telling people now.
Oh my gosh, man! All right, well, Forte, always a pleasure, sir. Hope you can join us this Wednesday as well. And,
I'll be there.
Yeah, we'll catch everyone on Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern time. Thank you. We'll catch you. We'll catch you. We'll see you Wednesday. Thank you.
Sir.